Hi, my name is Kristen. This is Kristen Kraves Books. So I thought it would be fun to do a tier ranking video of all the 2022 releases I have read so far. And I know that this looks like a lot, and it is. I have read 70 books so far this year, and about half have been 2022 releases. But I talk about 2022 releases a lot on my channel, and my new release videos every month are my most popular videos on this channel. So I also want to read the books that I talk about and share in those videos, or the ones that really stand out to me or I'm most interested in. And now that we are about halfway through the year, I thought it would be fun to tier rank them and tell you my thoughts as well. So I just kept the categories very simple. I have my faves, so my top tier books, the ones that I will talk about forever and might end up on my best books of the year list at the end of the year. Ones that I really liked or loved, but just not my favorites, but would recommend that you check out. And then ones that are just okay. So I could take or leave them. You might be interested in them. Not ones that I will find myself talking about a lot on the channel, but I am glad that I read them. And then I do have 3 or 4 that are just not for me and I would not recommend, and I probably won't talk about a lot. So let's get to this. The first one is A Lady for a Duke, and I'm already struggling. A Lady for a Duke, I think, is one that I would just recommend. And actually, I'm going to try and rank them within a tiers as well. We'll see if I can do that. But A Lady for the Duke was my first historical romance, and I really, really enjoyed it. I just think it was too long. There were some pacing issues, and the third act conflict wasn't my favorite, but overall, fantastic. It's a friends to lovers story, and we have a trans woman heroine, and she is absolutely fantastic. So I love that. There's some great humor. I love Alexis Hall's writing, so that is a really, really good one. A Walk in the Park. Another one I would recommend. This is interesting. It's an Audible original, and I think it's my favorite Audible original. It's a very, very short audiobook, so if you're looking for something quick, this is a good one. It is a romance between these two strangers who were promised the same dog at the shelter, and neither of them want to give him up, so they decide to share custody. And they fall in love and they have great conversations. There's no third act conflict because it's so short, so that is a fun one. American Royalty. I just read American Royalty, and I don't think I've talked about this on the channel yet. This is a romance inspired by Prince Harry and Meghan, and I'd say very loosely inspired. And I was more interested in Dani as a character. She is a rapper, but also has a skincare line that she's really passionate about. And she agrees to sing at this royal event where they're trying to improve their reputation. And she and the prince have a romance, but he's actually quite mean to her in the beginning. It's one of those things where they really lust after each other, but they don't have a lot of great conversations. So no, I wasn't too sold on the prince, but I really like Dani as a character. So still think it's worth reading, and that comes out this month. Bitter, favorite. Everything by Quickie Mazzy ends up being a favorite for me. There's just something about their writing that really works for me. And Bitter is the sequel to Pet, which is a book I read last year, I think, and really, really liked. But I think I like Bitter more, and I think because Bitter's an artist, and I just love any books where somebody's an artist, and has really great conversations about revolutions and the importance that setting up for what is right can have, but also the fear of that. And I thought that was an important conversation to have, so I really like that. Then Blood Scion is a favorite. I don't talk about this one enough because it's so brutal that it's hard for me to recommend to people, because the author did a lot of research on child soldiers, and that's really what this is about. And the author doesn't hold back at all, so it's really brutal and just horrifying, but so well handled, and one that still haunts me. So while it is one of my favorites, I just don't like to talk about it too much because I know it's going to be too much for a lot of people. But do check that one out if you're interested in it. Book Lovers, not for me. I've talked about this a few times. I really did not like Book Lovers, and the more time that goes on by, the less I'd like it, which is just too bad. I thought I was going to love this. And it was my first Emily Henry, and maybe that was a mistake. I liked the conversations about books. She's a literary agent. He's an editor. Loved all those conversations. Loved seeing them work on a book together. Loved their banter in the beginning, but this is not Rivals to Lovers. It's almost insta love. So I didn't like that. It's not even a romance, really. It is a book about a relationship between sisters, and the relationship was very frustrating to read about. So yeah, didn't like that one. Daughter of the Moon Goddess. This is almost a favorite, but I think it's just a would recommend because honestly, the first 50% is a lot of setup. It's a struggle to get through, but it pays off in the end in spades. Like, I thought it was well done, and I really, really liked the writing. I loved the world and the magic and all of that stuff and the relationships. And there's actually a love triangle in here, which I know a lot of us don't like, me included, but I thought it made sense and was well done in this story. So yeah, it is a good one, but you have to commit to it. You have to give it that 50%. And the sequel comes out this year, which I'm excited about. Dead silence. I think this is just okay for me. It was one that I really enjoyed while reading it, but as time has gone by, it's just not staying with me. And I think that's interesting with these kind of videos. You can reflect months later to see how books have really stayed with you, and this is just not one that has. And I will always appreciate it because it's my first sci-fi horror, and I've discovered I like that genre. But the relationship in this one killed it for me. I was not invested in the romance at all. I don't think we needed it. I thought it was distracting. But yeah, it was spooky. Some great horror in there. But the romance just added too much lightness to the story, I think, that we didn't need. Deep in Providence. Deep in Providence is one I just read, and this is an impressive debut. It is a YA contemporary with magic, and it is sapphic, and we were following this friend group where one of the girls died in a car accident and the other three are trying to bring her back to life, and it's rooted in Filipino magic, which I really, really liked. My only issue with it is I listened to the audiobook and we get all three of the girls' perspectives, and I had a really, really hard time distinguishing between them, and I think it would have been better if there were different narrators or if I read the book physically. So it's all kind of jumbled in my mind, but it was interesting. I liked the sapphic stories in it. I liked the family relationships that are happening. There's some complicated family things, some personal stuff, some conversations about religion. I thought it was an interesting read and a very impressive debut. Electra, I'm going to put here. Actually, I've read a lot of Greek myth retellings, especially based on the Trojan War, and this one stands out for me. This is the one that I've read the quickest. I flew through this book by Jennifer Saint, and I really liked her writing, and I liked the perspective of Electra. She's not a character that I knew much about. She is Agamemnon's daughter, and she is very connected to her father, so I thought that was an interesting take. We also follow her mother, and we follow Cassandra, who is a character I have read from before, but I always think her perspective is interesting because she is actually a Trojan, and she is blessed by Apollo with the gift to see the future, but then cursed because nobody believes her. So I always think her perspective is an interesting one. I wasn't expecting all three of those women's perspectives in this, but I liked it. Every Summer After. This, where am I putting this now? Every Summer After is a would recommend. Actually, I really, really liked this. It is such a messy romance. I might put it here, actually. It's very messy, and the characters make really ridiculous decisions, but you understand why they do it. Half of the book reads like YA. They're teenagers. It's friends to lovers. You see them meeting for the first time, and then we flash. The other chapters are 12 years later where they no longer speak. And you kind of figure out what happened back in the day. So it's, if you're Canadian and you spent summers at a cottage, you have to read this because it's so deeply Canadian, and it's a perfect summer read. Stasia, just okay. I think I like cult novels, and then I read them and I never love them. So I watch a lot of cult documentaries. I just watched that one. What's it called? Be Sweet. I'll put the picture up somewhere because it was interesting about Warren Jeffs. That is a triggering documentary, but it was well done, I thought. But the books about cults just don't seem to work for me. This one had magic in it and was interesting, but and I love this author, Claire LeGrand, but it's just not one that I don't think I'll ever talk about this on my channel. So it was just okay. Fake It Till You Bake It, loved. This is a foodie romance. You'll see a few foodie romances in this list. And in the future, if a foodie romance comes out this year, I will read it because that is just my jam. And this one also has fake dating. And the main character he is a football player, and she is a contestant from The Bachelor who turned down the proposal. So there's so many tropes that I love, and it was just perfection. So that's a good one. Forever Birchwood is one I would recommend. This is a middle grade. I don't read a ton of middle grade, but I like this one. But I'm biased because that is set in my hometown. But it was really good. It was really cute. Home Field Advantage. Home Field Advantage. Probably goes here. In between. Yeah, Home Field Advantage is one I just read and haven't talked about yet, but this is a sapphic YA contemporary, and it is a romance between a cheerleader and the quarterback, who is a girl. So this quarterback is having a hard time being accepted into the team because it's an all boys team, and you know how that goes. And the cheerleader is trying to help her adjust, and it's really sweet. So I really like that. I do like a good sports romance. And The Shadow of the Mountain is one that's turning out to be just okay with me. I really liked it in the beginning. This is a memoir, but it really hasn't stayed with me much. It is a tough read. Our author she had a tough life, and she was sexually assaulted multiple times as a child and as an adult, but she puts together a support group of women who have survived sexual assault, and they decide to summit Mount Everest. So we get her past, some of their past, and then their time on Mount Everest. So that was interesting. It just hasn't stayed with me. But it is being adapted into a movie, and Selena Gomez is going to star in it, so that'll be interesting. Legends and Lattes, number one favorite. Love Legends and Lattes. This is light fantasy about an orc barbarian who opens a coffee shop. It's fantastic. It was originally self-published, but now it is being traditionally published, which is amazing for the author. Foodie romance. Love and Other Disasters, another foodie romance. Where do I put this? I think above Electra. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Love and Other Disasters is, again, a foodie romance, but this one takes place on the set of a cooking show, which I love. And one of the characters is non-binary. The other one believes that she is unlovable because she's just going through a divorce, and they have a connection, and they have really sweet conversations, great banter, and it's steamy for sure. And then there's some funny scenes that take place on the set of the show as well. So I really, really had fun with that one. Love Radio, we will put here. This is a YA contemporary romance, but there is an attempted sexual assault in here, and we talk about how this affects our main character a lot, and I think that's important to know going in, because you wouldn't get that from the back or from this cover, so I think you need to know that. But if you're in that stage between high school and college and you can handle that trigger, I think this is a really good one. And there's some really romantic scenes, some sweet scenes. Our prince is a advice radio host, and he gives love advice on the radio, which is kind of cute. I knew I was going to say that. I always say My Chemical Romance, but I was born I was a teenager in the early 2000s. So that tells you everything you need to know about that. But this is My Mechanical Romance, and it is a cute YA contemporary romance. And if you are interested in STEM or robotics competitions at all, that is a good one to read. Nettle and Bone, favorite. I think I'm going to fall down a T. Kingfisher rabbit hole. I really liked this, and I don't like quest stories that often, but the characters that she meets along the way make this worth reading. So good. Not Good for Maidens, another one I really liked, This is super atmospheric. It is a Golden Market retelling. It is sapphic. Loved it. Not The Witch You Wed, another good one. Probably put it here. This is a paranormal romance between a magicless witch and a werewolf, so it's really good. One Italian Summer, probably here. One Italian Summer is one that has really grown on me. I liked it when I was reading it, but as I talk about it more, the more I realize I like it. And I love the descriptions of Italy, the food descriptions, the magic that is in here that Rebecca Searles puts in all her books. I really like that one. Part of Your World, number one. I actually read this in November of last year, but it is a 2022 release, so I had to include it because it's my favorite romance. Abby Jimenez is one of my favorite romance authors, and this is her best book in my opinion. But if you like the small town trope, this is so good. It's so tropey in a lot of ways, but it's just so well done. I love that book, and a lot of people are loving it too, so that makes me happy. Devon and Chris Plan a Wedding. I just read this, and I really liked it. I'm going to put it here. This is a sapphic romance, and it takes place on the set of a reality show where Devon and Chris have to convince their families that they are engaged, and if they make it to the altar and everybody's convinced that they're a real couple, they win $100,000. And of course, they fall in love along the way, and it's really sweet and steamy as well. Siren Queen. I really liked this. Siren Queen by Nevo. This is if you like old Hollywood and you want an honest look at old Hollywood but add some magic and monsters, that is a good one. Add some sapphic romance as well. That is a good one. Nevo's writing, beautiful. Love that book. The Change, I really like. The Change. Okay, where am I going to put The Change? Probably here. The Change by Kirsten Miller is for people who like practical magic, which you know I love, my favorite series. So The Change follows 3 women who are going through menopause, so I appreciated that. And as they're going through the change, they're realizing that they have magical gifts or they have certain powers, and one of the characters can talk to the dead, and she realizes that a young girl has been murdered, and then these 3 women work together to solve that murder, and it's fantastic. The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea sadly has become just okay for me. I loved it when I read it, but I think it's just a vibe when you read it, but it's not one that stays with you. It's kind of got that fable fairy tale thing going on, and I really like the writing, and I would read more from this author for sure. But the romance wasn't really my thing, and it just is not one that I ever think about, but it is beautiful. The Maid, not for me. Probably my least favorite book of the year. I know people love The Maid, but I had so many issues with it, so that is not for me at all. The Night Shift. I'm going to put The Night Shift here. It's just okay, but it's just okay in the way that most popcorn thrillers are just okay. But I knew who the murderer was right from the beginning, so that was kind of disappointing. Not enough red herrings, but I like the whole setup for that one. If you're looking for a thriller just to read by the pool in a day, that's a fun one. It's good enough. The Romance Recipe I just read. I think I'm going to put it here. This is another foodie romance, and I really, really liked it. It is Amy owns a restaurant, and Sophie is her head chef. Amy really lusts after Sophie. She's very much attracted to her. And Sophie has recently ended an engagement, and she is realizing that she's bisexual, and there's a lot of mutual pining in here. And it's really well done, and this is steamy as well. Though they get together early on, their relationship is complicated. They probably could have more conversations than they have, but I had a good time with it. It was fun to read about the in and outs and the highs and lows of owning a restaurant. So that was a good one. This Fish is Grace, favorite, and I just read this. So I haven't talked about this yet, but this is one of my most anticipated books of the year, but I didn't realize I was going to love it quite as much as I did, because I know that trope of her touch kills is so overdone and cliche, but I love the way that Emily Thied handled it and the lore behind it. It all made so much sense to me, so I actually really liked that, and it is a bodyguard romance as well, and it was perfect. Obsessed with it, loved it, can't wait to read the next book, and I don't say that often because I'm so bad at the series. Yerba Buena, another favorite, probably here. This is Nina LaCour's first adult romance, and it was fantastic. It is a sapphic love story, and both of these women have traumatic pasts, and drug addiction is a major trigger warning for this one. So they're struggling through their past and working through their past, and it kind of bleeds into their relationship as well. But I thought it was a very authentic look at trauma and relationships in general, so I thought that was brilliant. Yinka, Where Is Your Husband? Just okay for me, but it was good. This is, if you like Bridget Jones' Diary, this is a good one for you. Yinka as a character kind of annoyed me a little bit, but she felt real. I understood her, but it's really about Yinka trying to find a wedding date, and it's a fun time, not one that I ever think about, but yeah, so it was just okay. You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty. Oh no, do I like this more than Legends of Latte? I think just a little bit. Because it's a quickie and messy, because it is a messy romance, but feels so authentic, deals a lot with grief, moving on from the loss of your partner, how art can heal. The relationship is not going to be everybody's favorite, but it made sense to me why they felt connected. It's going to be a divisive book, and I kind of love it for that reason. Unmasked. Unmasked. Where would I put Unmasked? I'm just going to put it at the end here because it's a true crime. So Paul Holes is the detective who helped solve the Golden State Killer case, and he does talk about that a lot in this book. And if you read I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara, you should read this because Paul Holes and Michelle McNamara became pretty close friends, and he talks a lot about her death in here, and it's quite sad. And if you're interested in how genetic testing leads to catching killers and solving crimes, this is a good one to read. So it was fascinating. Lessons in Chemistry has become just okay for me. No, I think I liked it. Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea just a little bit more. Lessons in Chemistry, I think you look at this cover and you expect it to be light and fluffy, and everybody talks about it in a certain way, but it has some darker moments. There is an assault scene in here. There's a lot of grief, so don't expect light and fluffy going into this one, but there is a cooking show. Our main character is a chemist who ends up with a cooking show that is kind of based around chemistry, so I love that part. But the dog in here has a perspective, and that could be charming and sweet, but I just don't know how I feel about it. So yeah, that's not one. It's okay. I have it on my shelves and I will keep it, but I just think you have to go into it the right expectations, and I don't know that it's being marketed properly. Finley Donovan. I think Finley Donovan was just okay for me. We'll put it here. I liked the first one enough, but the second one just felt like a rehash of the first book, and it's kind of the same as that show Dead to Me on Netflix. I loved the first season, and then I couldn't get through the second one. So I don't know if it's just like the gimmick of it gets old for me, but I will try the next one, and we'll see before I decide my full thoughts on that series. The Woman in the Library, another one that was just okay. This is marketed incorrectly. Speaking of that, this is the synopsis on the back happens within the first 5 pages, and then this is nothing like you expect. This is not a locked room mystery. It's story within a story, and it's a little convoluted. Interesting take. Like, it did some interesting things, but yeah, I don't know. That one's just doesn't hit right. Then the Christie Affair. I'm going to put this in between these two, I think. The Christie Affair had so much potential. I liked the whole idea of, I know Agatha Christie went missing for a few days in real life, and nobody knows where she went after she finds out that her husband had an affair. But the Christie Affair it's from the perspective of her husband's mistress, and I just didn't care about her husband's mistress or her motivations. And obviously she's not with Agatha Christie when she's missing, so she kind of just makes up what she thinks Agatha Christie was doing. So I don't know why I would care. So I just didn't care. Yeah, so that is it. These are all the 2022 releases I have read so far this year ranked. And I'm looking at this, and I think that this looks pretty good. I do think Part of Your World's my favorite. I go back and forth between whether I like You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty more than Legends and Lattes. It's hard. You can't really compare them. But I'm really happy with this favorites tier here. This is looking strong as well. I'm very sad that I didn't like book Lovers, but that's okay. And then it's funny because a lot of the ones that ended up in just okay were ones that I enjoyed when I first read them, but more space from them. They're just not my favorites anymore. So I would love to know if you've read any of these, what your thoughts on them are. What's the best 2022 release you've read? And if I've read it as well, I would love to know. There's so many more on my list. I am going to start one right now. It's called Flying Solo. So I have a lot of reading ahead of me, but I also have my other challenges I need to do too. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope I can do this again in December or January with the rest of the books that 2022 releases I read, or maybe I'll put them all together and see. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope that this video worked out, and thanks for your support. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.